people at the scene. And one of the things I think that's important to stress in this insane month, think about it, Anderson, October 1st, we had the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. We close out October with now the first terrorist attack in New York City since 9/11. One of the things the FBI has been stressing, and I'm glad we put up the 800 number on there for tips, is for folks on scene in events like this, here are the things in order that you're to do. Run first. If you can't run away, you hide. If you can't hide, fight. And lastly, tell. And I was heartened. I talked to a couple of people that were out here in the crowd, and they were showing me pictures of the subject, and I asked them, my first question to them was, have you given this to the police? And they said yes, and that's what people need to do.
Yeah, I mean, that run, hide, fight is such an important thing to keep in mind, because I think many people, the fight aspect is kind of a newer thing that law enforcement is now encouraging people to do, given what they have learned from all the active shooter situations we've seen.
The paradigm has shifted. We've seen in a number of these situations that people that, don't understand you've got to help yourself first, because first responders, they may be minutes away, and those minutes may save your life.
Yeah. Just in terms of this investigation, I mean, Phil, you were talking about how they have to go about it assuming that there are other people involved and then disprove that over the course of time.
Anderson, one of the hardest things in an investigation like this is proving the negative, especially now that we have a note that suggests affiliation with ISIS, somebody who's been in the United States, it looks like, for 7 years. How can I guarantee you that his claims of affiliation with ISIS don't include any personal contact, that he never traveled to somebody 2 years ago to talk to an ISIS member, that he never had a phone number 2 years ago that he's discarded to talk to an ISIS member, that he never met somebody in a cafe? Reconstructing that timeline over time to tell you in a month or 2 months, I guarantee that note was just a claim of affiliation with ISIS, but there was never any communication. That is really tough.
Michael, how likely is it that there could be a video, kind of a martyrdom video, so-called, which is what we saw in, I think, in the Charlie Hebdo attacks, if memory serves me, there were some. In some of the attacks in the Arabs that we've seen, there had been that.
I was just going to say that if he did make contact with ISIS, they will have instructed him not to just leave a note, right? They want a martyrdom video. They want him pledging allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and kind of reading out a confession as to why he's about to do what he's going to do. This is for maximum propaganda value. So the thing to wait for is ISIS's media channels trying to put up some video in the next few hours. Now, it's strange because, as Paul Cruikshank was mentioning, they claim credit very recently for an attack that had nothing to do with ISIS, Las Vegas. They were right out the gate with that. On this, they're waiting a while. So now another paradigm that's shifting is, does their waiting a while mean that they're in production mode trying to prepare some grand announcement that proves essentially that this guy was in fact a willing executioner of the caliphate?
Yeah. Juliet, as you watch what's happened over the last couple of hours, I mean, what kind of challenges do investigators face at this stage?
Well, I'll say something that's not a challenge, is that the suspect is alive, and that will be a lot of information if he's willing to speak about who he is and what his motivations are. Of course, they also now know where he lives, and then they're clearly searching for potential co-conspirators. So that's their main focus. Was anyone help him in this attack, in particular in the rental of the van, people that he may have been with in New Jersey or earlier in Florida? So that's the first piece. The second piece, of course, is the international side. We tend to talk about sort of radicalized by ISIS. We're sort of waiting to see what they have to say. But really, we have to think of ISIS as sort of an ecosystem now. There are people who are sort of close to the center, who are being directed by them, and others who are sort of on the periphery, who are sort of, as I describe it, people, ISIS is selling hate, and these people are buying it, right? And so we just don't know along that trajectory where ISIS fits in and where the relationship is with this attack. That will take a lot longer, and it will, involve sort of the usual investigations involving the CIA, foreign intelligence agencies, and foreign travel.